So with Bitcoin down, we're going to take a look at MSTY, CONY, and HOOY to see how Bitcoin is affecting those. And then we're going to go in, update my spreadsheet so that we can find out what my new real price per share is after we enter in those distributions. We'll also enter in my CONY purchase that I did make due to the fact that Bitcoin was down and it did hit my indicators. Hello, my friends, this is Legend. So we're going to go over Bitcoin. We'll take a look at that chart. We'll also take a look at CONY, HOOY, and MSTY just to get an idea of where they're currently sitting and to see how Bitcoin has affected those ETFs as well. And like I said, after that, we will update my spreadsheet as we will be earning those distributions for the YieldMax ETFs. So let's just start right off here with Bitcoin. And we're looking at the Bitcoin chart right now. And as you can see, I had this line drawn in from the last video of that 59.2. We also have a support at 56.5 and a third support even lower at 53.5. I was hoping that we can hold that 59.2, and it looks like so far we are. And if we zoom in just for the guys in the back, you can see right here is that 59.2. We did come down, test it, and we have since bounced off of it and currently sitting at about 63.2. Now this is still the weekend, so things could change, but currently we are still respecting that 59.2. And we really need Bitcoin to get moving on back up, get back up here and start testing and breaking this 71.5. Because with this drop on Bitcoin, it has hit our ETFs that are affected by the move on Bitcoin. And one of those ETFs, of course, is our favorite MSTY. And here we are on MSTY. And as you can see, it too has been coming down. And if we take a look at MSTR, you can see the same type of drop on MSTR. And it all seems to be originating from around this same May the 11th date. And I'm curious to see, was that around that same date of the start of the drop on Bitcoin? If we look back on Bitcoin and we go to about May the 11th, and you can see it's about right here. So yeah, it's pretty close to about where that thing starts dropping down on Bitcoin, right? It starts dropping down. That caused MSTR to drop, which of course brings down MSTY as well. Now we are currently sitting at about $17 on MSTY. With that drop on Bitcoin, it has brought MSTY down. And the same goes with MSTR, right? It too has dropped. So if it's dropping, MSTY cannot go up, right? It's got to go down with it. Now, what we will want to see is when MSTR starts moving back up, what will MSTY do? Can it move up with it? And from what I've seen on these high yield ETFs, especially with YieldMax, on quite a few of those, they have definitely been moving up more with the price of the underlying than before. We would not see these kind of moves up with the high yield ETF when the underlying would jump up. But lately, we have started to see more of a move up with that price. But as you all know, if it comes down, so does the ETF that's associated with that underlying. So what do we need for MSTY to start moving up? Well, we need Bitcoin to move up so that it can help MSTR to move up. And that is how MSTY is going to move back up. So we just need some time and we need some help from Bitcoin to start moving back up. How about CONY? And here we are on CONY. And when I update my spreadsheet, you'll see I actually made a few purchases on CONY as it did drop below 10 on that RSI2. And that's the indicator that I like to use to decide whether or not I'm going to make a purchase on CONY or any of these high yield ETFs. It does not mean that I will immediately purchase shares, but it does mean that I would consider purchasing shares if it did drop below that 10 on that RSI2. But the other side of that coin is it has to help to bring down my real price per share. And you'll see that coming up later in the video. And finally, we have HOOY. As you can see, it's been trading kind of sideways here for a little while. And then we had a nice pop up. And then, of course, we're having a little bit of a pullback as well, which is understandable because of Bitcoin. But overall, it is still staying within roughly this range here. Now, if HOOY does end up dropping on that RSI2 below 10, and that price of HOOY is below my real price per share, then I will be looking to purchase some shares of HOOY because that will only help to lower my real price per share. And again, you'll see more on that when we get to my spreadsheet. And speaking of my spreadsheet, here we are. We're looking at my spreadsheet now. And as you can see, I have all of my high yield ETFs called out across the top up here. I have a total of 15 ETFs. Now, Divo is for me on the chopping block. I am waiting for it to move up, and then I will probably end up selling Divo. And the reason being is just because it's going to take me way too long to get Divo paid off. And since I only have a few shares and it only pays out monthly, it's just going to take way too long for this one to get paid off. So I am looking to sell Divo, but I will wait until it moves back up. I've got plenty of time. I'm in no hurry because I continue to lower my real price per share by capturing those distributions. So I'm not worried about Divo, and I will look to sell when it starts moving back up, even though currently it is still above my real price per share, even at the current moment. But I think it did have a little bit of a pullback. So I'll wait until we get a green day moving back up, and then I'll probably look to sell Divo. But with this spreadsheet, what it does for me and what it does for the people who have a copy of the spreadsheet is that it helps them to see where they really currently sit in each of the positions that they own. And it's easy to see whether or not, if you purchased shares at the current price, would it help to lower that real price per share, which only helps to provide you even more downside protection because it moves that real price per share closer to that market price. So that when that market price does decide to level off and start moving back up, it's got less room to move before it crosses back over that market price and then turns green here. That's the first goal. Whenever it is red, my first goal is to get it green and continue to lower that real price per share so that I can increase that downside protection in hopes that no matter what that stock price does of that high yield ETF, I can keep it green. Now, it does take some time and patience, but that's just how I'm playing these high yield ETFs. So before we enter in those distributions, as you can see, out of all of these 15, the only ones that if I did sell out of, I would lose money on is CONY, because it is red here, ULTY, because it's red, and HOOY, it's red. The rest of them are green. Now, how much am I down? Well, HOOY, I'm down about 20% currently. For ULTY, I'm down 0.6%. Not much at all. This one here, I'm really just right there on the line. And CONY, I'm down 25%. Now, with the drop of Bitcoin, it has brought those down a bit more, but that's okay because I believe over time, Bitcoin is going to move back up. And when it does, it's going to carry these right on back up. And because I continue to lower my real price per share, it does not have to go up as much before it crosses back over and turns this particular position to green, meaning that if I did sell out of it, I would make money. So currently, if I did sell all 15 of my high yield ETFs, I would currently make about $21,622. Not too shabby. Now that has dropped because this does take into account the sell out of all of those stock shares of those ETFs, right? So therefore, it does take into account the price of each high yield ETF that I'm showing here. So that's why this number will fluctuate. It will fluctuate depending on the price, and that's the market price or closing price of each of these high yield ETFs. So if we see Bitcoin moving back up, then we should start seeing this number here of 21.6 thousand starting to move back up again as well. But let's go ahead and update my spreadsheet, and we're going to start right off with CONY. And of course, if you would like to get a copy of this spreadsheet, come on over, join my Discord. That link is in the pinned comments and in the description below, where you can join my Discord. And then within the Discord, there will be a link that will allow you to get a copy of this sheet. And then all you got to do is make your own copy of it so that it is editable. And then you'll enter in your own high yield ETFs, how many shares you have, and at what purchase prices that you made. And all of that will help to calculate that real price per share so that you know where you are currently setting with each of your high yield ETFs. Because if you do not know what this number is, you really honestly do not know where you currently set in your position of your high yield ETF. Because your broker app may show you being negative in that position, but when you add in those distributions, you may actually be positive, because we do earn distributions for these high yield ETFs, and you should make sure you're factoring that in. Now, of course, if you are turning around and buying more shares with that distribution, then that will increase your number of shares. You will still earn that distribution, but you're turning right around and you're spending that distribution to buy more shares. Therefore, your real price per share would not drop as much as mine, because I am not setting these on drip. All right. I am not reinvesting the distributions back into each of these. I select when I want to buy and at what price I want to buy that ETF at. And I'm not going to buy more shares if this number here is green, because if I did buy more shares of an example here at NVDY, then I would be buying them at $13, because that's the price of NVDY currently, and my real price per share being $9.71. Well, if I purchased shares at 13, that's going to raise this real price per share from $9.71 up. And I do not want to raise it up, because if NVDY drops down and I'm raising this price up, then I have less downside protection. I only want to lower my real price per share so that I only provide myself with more downside protection by capturing those distributions or purchasing shares under my real price per share. And you'll see an example of that on CONY. So let's just go ahead and jump right in and let's take a look at CONY. So to get to that individual sheet, each one of these high yield ETF tickers up here are linked to the actual individual sheet. And to get to that sheet on this version of my spreadsheet, you simply hover right over and you click the pop-up. Takes you straight to that individual sheet. And at that point, you can enter in your distributions or any purchases that you did make. And in this case, I did make 3 purchases more of CONY. The first purchase was on 6/3, and I purchased those shares at $22.15. How many shares did I buy? I purchased 25 shares. So you're going to see by me purchasing shares under my real price per share, my real price per share currently is at $30.79. Well, if I purchase shares at $22.15, it's going to lower this real price per share. And what does that do for me? Well, that is going to help bring down that adjusted average so that the price of CONY has less room to move up before crossing back over my real price per share. And that's the number that I care about, right? That's the number I want down to 0 eventually so that it would be then paid off. So those 25 shares is going to lower that real price per share from $30.79 down to $30.12. Now keep in mind, I have not entered in any distributions yet. Let's go ahead and enter in my second purchase. And I purchased more shares on that same day. And that was on 6/3. And I bought these shares at $21.80. How many shares did I buy? I bought 25 more shares. So that's going to lower that real price per share of $30.12 down to $29.51. So see, now we're dropped below 30 bucks and the current price of CONY is at $20.29. It is still below my real price per share, but as you can see, I'm narrowing that gap little by little. Now I do need help from CONY itself to trade sideways to up to eventually be able to cross over. But I believe once Bitcoin changes direction, I think we're going to start seeing CONY change direction as well. That third purchase I made on CONY was on 6/5. I bought those shares at $20.29. And that's pretty close to about what it actually closed at on Friday. How many shares did I buy? And that's 25 shares. So that's going to lower that real price per share from $29.51 down to $28.89. Nice, right? I mean, you kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm bringing it on down. Yes, I am putting more money invested, but by bringing that real price per share down, it has less of a gap to fill before it gets down below that current price of CONY. And as CONY would move back up, that gap narrows even more. But now that I've entered in my purchases, don't forget, I have my distribution to enter too, which is also going to lower that real price per share. And we earned 27 cents this week. And how many shares do I have? Well, can I count all 370 shares? Well, let's take a look. The X date for that distribution was on 6/4. I have to own those shares before the X date, not on, but before. So I can only count shares that are before 6/4. So these shares right here, that last purchase on 6/5, I cannot count those 25 shares. So that means I have to subtract 25 shares from the 370 because I can count the other two purchases because I purchased them on 6/3. That is before 6/4, so those I can count. I cannot count the 6/5 because it is after 6/4. So all I have to do is take that number right there, 370, and just simply subtract the 25 shares. And I'm doing that on the calculator right here. So you can see that's going to give me 345 shares. And that is the number I will enter in for that distribution payout. So we'll enter in 345 shares. And that's also going to lower my real price per share right here from $28.89 down to $28.63. Very nice. Now, since the $28.63 is still under that current price of CONY, that means if I did sell all my shares of CONY at that current price, I will take a loss and I will lose $3,085. But if CONY moves up and I continue to lower my real price per share, that gap gets smaller and smaller. And eventually, I can get my real price per share below the current price of CONY. At least that is my goal. So moving on, we have PLTY. Now, PLTY is one of the ones that I do have paid off. And what that means is I have earned more in distributions right here than I had spent in capital. All right. My capital invested is $22.44 and the amount of distributions I have earned is $25.02. Therefore, I've earned more than I actually paid to invest. So therefore, I am currently in the green on this one. And therefore, if I were to sell, I would actually make money on PLTY. But let's go ahead and enter that distribution because we earned 48 cents this week. That's a nice little pop up from the last few distributions we've seen. Now, how many shares do I have? I've got 37 shares. So let's enter in 37 here. And that's going to lower that real price per share of minus $6.98 down to minus $7.46. Now, it is increasing that number, but you have to understand that's a minus. So this is going further and further away from that zero, which means that's how much more I'm actually making and how much is actually free money coming into my account. Because since I earned more in distributions that I actually spent in capital that's invested into PLTY, means that basically those distributions has paid me back the capital I had invested, and therefore I really have no money of my own capital invested into PLTY. It was all paid back in distributions to me, and now everything above that is just free and clear, not including taxes, of course. But for PLTY, if I were to sell out of PLTY, I would actually make $1,504. For NVDY, we earned 13 cents, and I have a total of 71 shares, and that's going to help to lower that real price per share of $9.71 down to $9.58. And therefore, if I had to sell all my shares of NVDY at the current price, I would make $242. For ULTY. Now, ULTY, if you remember, this one actually was red. And what that means is my real price per share being at $29.84 is above that current price of ULTY. And that current price of ULTY being at $29.81. And that is definitely under my real price per share. Only by 3 cents, but it is under it. So therefore, it does show as red on my summary page. But we did earn 39 cents this week on ULTY. And I have a total of 56 shares. So when I enter in that 56 shares, that's going to help to drop that real price per share from $29.84 down to $29.44. And you see, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell everybody here. I'm capturing those distributions. And even though it was red, showing that the price of ULTY did drop below my real price per share, after I earned that distribution, I'm back below that actual current price of ULTY. I am now sitting at a real price per share of $29.44, and that current price is still $29.81. So therefore, what have I done? I have gave myself that downside protection once again. I am now not red, but you'll see when we go back to that summary page, it is now going to show green, meaning that if I were to sell all my shares of ULTY at the current price of $29.81, I would make $20. Not much on the making of that stock, I understand, but it's better than that small loss I was showing just before entering in that distribution. And that is the power of this spreadsheet. It does help you to know what you need to do and how far you need to go before you can actually get this thing turned around. Now, if ULTY continues to drop, then yes, I could end up going red again, and we'll see if that distribution is enough to drop it down below it. But if ULTY starts trading sideways or starts moving back up, then all it's doing is giving me that extra gap between my real price per share and ULTY to help give me that downside protection. And then when I get that distribution, I'm only increasing that gap so that it provides even more downside protection. So that if it did drop back down to $29.81 or $29.44 even, after I earn my distribution, it might be at $29.20 or something like that, right? So even if it comes back down where it originally was, I've went lower, so I'm continually to move that down to provide myself that protection. But again, that's just how I play these high yield ETFs. And for MSTY here, you can see this one here is paid off as well. I have 2 of them that's paid off, and that's PLTY and MSTY. The others I am working to get paid off, and I hope to get those paid off at some point. And since MSTY is paid off, that means that I have earned more in distributions than I actually had invested in the ETF in question. And in this case, I actually was selling some premium. So I actually have some premium and distributions. Both of those are amounts of money that I've earned, and added together is definitely above that capital I had invested. But even without the premium, you can see my distributions being $11,918 is above the capital that I had used to invest into MSTY of $11,499. So therefore, this one stays as paid off. And that is why you'll see a negative $13.18 here, means that that one is paid off. And when we enter in the distribution of 24 cents this week, and I have a total of 95 shares, that's going to lower that real price per share of minus $13.18 down to minus $13.42. So if I were to sell all my shares of MSTY at the current price of $17.03, even though it has dropped, I would still make $2,893. But I would not sell out of MSTY just simply because I no longer have any capital invested. So therefore, really, I have no reason to sell it, because from here out, all distributions that it is paying me is just free and clear, not including taxes, but just free and clear. That is just money that is coming in that I have none of my personal capital invested, because YieldMax has paid me back the amount I had invested in the form of a distribution. So I have captured all of my money back, and now all the money I make is just profit. And that is why I work to try to get these paid off. I'm not looking to get that big fat weekly distribution. I'm just looking to earn a distribution and have none of my capital invested. That is my plan, and that is my goal. Now with SMCY, we earned 17 cents. That's a nice pop up from the last few distributions. How many shares do I have? Well, I have 350 shares, and that's going to help to lower my real price per share of $5.99 down to $5.81. So as you can see, every week I'm able to drop my real price per share, and all I'm doing is helping myself stay ahead of any NAV drop, if there happen to be for any of these high yield ETFs. For AMDY. Now AMDY's just been on fire, right? I mean, have you taken a look at it? That thing has just been on fire. And the reason AMDY's on fire is because AMD has just been on a rocket ship. And that distribution is also paying us very nicely because it has gone up so much. And this week, we're hitting $1.17. Very, very nice. And like I'd said before, as long as we keep making that nice dollar distribution or so, it's going to take me no time at all to get this one paid off. Now, I've already entered in that $1.17 distribution, but as you can see, that average of the last four distributions is $1.10. So as long as I make $1.10 for the next 19 distributions, and I haven't even fully entered this one in yet, but currently at 19 more distributions, I will actually have this one paid off. So let's finish entering this distribution because I have 164 shares, and that 164 shares is also going to lower my real price per share of $19.91 down to $18.74. That is awesome. With a current price of AMD at $50.83, I'm sitting pretty nice with this one. And as you can see, as long as we keep a distribution of about $1.10 up here at the top of my spreadsheet, I only need about 18 more distributions, and this one will be paid off. And this will be my third one paid off. So don't tell me you can't do it. I've done it, and I've done it 3 times so far. Now it does take time, and it's not guaranteed, but I am working and continually to be patient and diligent to get these paid off. So if I were to sell out of AMD, which I'm not, but if I were at that current price of $50.83, I would make $5,262. A very nice profit on that amount invested. And once I get this thing paid off, then I won't have to worry about anything because I will have earned more in distributions than I had capital invested. And therefore, all those distributions from that point on will be free and clear, not including any taxes. That is my goal. Next, we have YMAX. And on YMAX, we earn 9 cents, and I have a total of 758 shares. So that's going to lower my real price per share of $5.96 down to $5.86. So if I were to sell all my shares of YMAX at that current price of $8.04, I would make $1,649. For HOOY. Now HOOY is currently down for me, and I am waiting for it to drop below that 10 on that RSI2 so that I can actually purchase more shares of HOOY to help drop down this real price per share even more. But until then, I'm going to keep capturing in those distributions and keep lowering it down little by little. But for this week, we earned 60 cents. What a heck of a distribution for HOOY. We haven't seen 60 cents in quite a few weeks, but I have a total of 126 shares, and that's going to lower that real price per share of $37.75 down to $37.14. But since it is still above that current price of HOOY, it means that if I were to sell all my shares at that current price of $27.86, I would take a loss of $1,169. And that's what I mean by no matter what amount you're making in that distribution, until you've earned back all the capital you had invested, you're not really making anything off of it. You don't make money off of these until you've captured back all of your capital invested. And then at that point, you're making money. But until then, in my opinion, you're not making money. You're just only getting paid back what you used to invest into that ETF. But once it is paid off, and once you have been paid back that capital, the rest is free and clear. And try to do a percentage gain when you earn a certain dollar amount. And how much do you have invested? Well, it would be 0 invested. Try to do that math and let me know what you come up with. And a spoiler alert, it's undefined because you can't divide by 0. Next, we have QDTE. We earned 23 cents for QDTE, and I have a total of 155 shares. So that's going to lower that real price per share of $19.87 down to $19.63. And QDTE being at $30.19 means if I were to sell all my shares at that current price, I would make $1,636. For IWMY, we earned 11 cents, and I have 551 shares, and it's going to lower my real price per share from $13.76 down to $13.65. Continue to lower that real price per share, and therefore if I were to sell all my shares at the current price of IWMY, I would make $2,982. For QQQY, we earned 14 cents this week, and I have a total of 551 shares, and that's going to change that real price per share from $17.93 down to $17.79. And therefore, if I were to sell all my shares of QQQY at the current price of $23.49, I would make $3,140. For WDTE, we earned 17 cents, and I have 540 shares, and that's going to lower that real price per share of $23.36 down to $23.18. And the current price of WDTE being $30.12 means if I were to sell all my shares at that current price, I would make $3,746. Now, as you've seen, I'm definitely making more than I have lost. And we'll see what that total is once we get to my summary page. For JEPQ, this one pays out monthly. So I do not have a distribution to record for this week. So my real price per share still stands at $7.97. So if I were to sell all my shares at the current price of JEPQ at $58.90, I would make $2,801. And for the last one, we have Divo. And Divo, I did not receive a distribution this week because this one pays out monthly as well. So I do not have a distribution to record. Therefore, my real price per share of $44.19 still stands. And with the current price of $46.06 for Divo, if I were to sell all my shares of Divo at that current price, I would make $31.80. And like I've mentioned before, I will be looking to sell Divo, but I will be looking for it to move up and then I will be looking to sell out of it, take that total amount of money that I would have, and that's roughly about $780, and I can use it to help purchase more shares of CONY or HOOY whenever they hit my indicators. So that was the last ETF that I have. So let's go back to my summary page and let's find out where it's currently setting. To go back to that summary page, hover right over this back to summary, click the pop-up, takes you right back to that summary page. And as you can see, now that total gain here is up to $22,381. So it did move up because we did earn those distributions. CONY, we're still under, but it was $30 and something, right? Now it's $28.63. Brought that down a good bit. ULTY was red, but now it is under that current market price. So therefore now it's green. So ULTY, I'm green again. And the last one is HOOY. And that one, of course, I am still down, but I did bring it down a bit more with that distribution. And as you can see, the rest of them are green. So I do not even have to worry about those. If they're green, I don't even pay attention to them. I only pay attention to the ones that are red. And reason being is because if I did buy more of any of these green ones, it's going to raise that real price per share. And currently, I want to work to get it paid off as quickly as possible. And then if I want to purchase shares, I can do so at that point, as at that time, I would be purchasing shares using other people's money. In this case, YieldMax money, right? So that is my plan and that is my goal. So if you'd like to get a copy of this spreadsheet so that you can track your own, find out where you're currently setting, because unless you are tracking that, really, honestly, you don't know where you currently set. You don't know if you're green, you don't know if you're red, you don't know if you're up, you don't know if you're down. But by tracking these, entering in that information once a week, it don't take long to enter it in, but for just once a week, entering in any kind of purchases you made and that distribution, it at least will tell you if it's something that you need to pay attention to, like on mine. I need to watch CONY and I need to watch HOOY for potential buys so that I can lower that real price per share in hopes that eventually when it does turn around, it's going to move back up and then eventually I can turn it green. So click that link in the pinned comments and down in the description below to join my Discord, get a copy of this sheet, track your high yield ETFs, and find out what your real price per share is. We would love to have you join the Discord, and I'll also enter in any purchases that I do make in these high yield ETFs, along with a few other purchases that I do make throughout the week. I enter those into my Discord, so you'll get notified of those. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button, as it would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.